Coming up next on Arizona Horizons Journalists Roundtable, we'll discuss how the federal government shutdown is impacting Arizona, including the closing of Grand Canyon National Park. And a federal judge orders a monitor for the Maricopa County Sheriff's Office. The Journalists Roundtable is next on Arizona Horizon.
Arizona Horizon is made possible by contributions from the Friends of Eight, members of your Arizona PBS station. Thank you.
Good evening and welcome to Arizona Horizons Journalists Roundtable. I'm Ted Simons. Joining me tonight are Jim Small of the Arizona Capital Times, Howard Fisher of Capital Media Services, and Hank Stevenson of the Arizona Capital Times. Federal government shutdown is now 4 days old and counting. Jim, what kind of impact we seeing now around the state?
Well, I think that Arizona has 40,000 some odd federal workers here. A lot of them are furloughed. I mean, estimates on that kind of vary, but you're certainly going to have a large number of them that are furloughed. We've got, as you mentioned in the lead-in, I mean, the Grand Canyon is closed, and other national parks. I know in the Havasu area, Lake Mead recreation area is closed. It's certainly near the end of the summer season, but that's still an impacted businesses there. You've got a lot of people at the military bases, civilian employees that are associated with our large military bases. A lot of them are out of work right now, and so I think temporarily it's not terrible, but the longer this drags on, the bigger the impact is going to be.
It's mainly a localized effect, as Jim points out. I mean, from a statewide perspective, we are not very dependent on federal dollars. We saw this during sequestration. If we go over the financial cliff and don't, go ahead and raise the debt limit, there'll be some of that. But we're not as dependent. Again, Tucson, you're in trouble, obviously.
Yeah, you got campgrounds, you got national parks, but you also have DES with welfare checks and these sorts of things. Some folks are feeling it and feeling it now.
Yeah, there's been some benefits cut off, some things that were paid for through the federal government run down through state agencies. The Women and Infant Children program, which gives money to poor people, essentially, has been cut down. Other programs are going to be kind of phased out as we keep going through this, depending on how long the whole thing goes.
And this is really the key. One of the things we've learned about federal budgeting is for a lot of these agencies, they actually budget a quarter in advance. So in the case of the Women, Infants, and Children's program, what we found out is originally we thought, we're going to be good through Friday. Well, gee, USDA found some money in the cushions of its couch and said, we can keep you running at least through October and maybe even longer because of the fact that we're budgeted a quarter ahead. So again, depending on how long this lasts, the last shutdown was 21 days, we'll have to see.
Indeed. Your BLM land, National Guard, non-essential workers out, National Guard are out. You mentioned Luke Air Force Base, ADOT, Department of Health. A lot of these things are being impacted, but the big headline grabber is the Grand Canyon. Now, earlier in the week, it sounded like the governor's office, the governor in particular, not all that interested in opening the Grand Canyon with state funds or trying to do this. Now, later in the week, interested, but the feds aren't. What's going on here?
Yeah, a week ago when we asked the governor about the impending government shutdown, that they downplayed the issue. They said, it's not that big of a deal. We think that they'll avoid it, and we're not going to worry about going after the Grand Canyon. It was earlier this week where we'll be okay. It's really not that important to the state. It's interesting. It's on the license plates and it's the state nickname and everything. But so after it happened and it got closed, I think that they kind of realized, well, okay, this is kind of bad PR for Arizona. We should at least try to make an effort like they did 20 years ago, try to go out and do it. I know Howie wrote a story about how the federal government and the Park Service just basically said, no, you can't do that.
Well, talk about what happened 20 years ago.
Well, this is the fascinating thing. I think part of what the pressure was is I caught up with Fife Simons, who was actually fishing in Alaska, and he said, let me tell you how we got them to come to the table. First shutdown in 1995, I marched up there with my National Guard and my DPS and my Parks folks and made a big dramatic scene, and that obviously went nowhere. But that resulted in some negotiations between the state and Department of Interior, who agreed, if you can come up with $17,000 a day, we will keep open the park up to Mather Point, up to Grand Canyon
part
Village.
Of the park, yes.
Part of the park. They did. John F. Long came up with 3 days' worth. The Parks Department found some money in its couch, and they did it and kept the thing open the whole 21 days. This time, I think that there's a couple of things going on. First of all, to get back to the PR thing, I think this governor didn't like being embarrassed by the former governor to say, hey, I managed to do it, what are you doing? But what also happened is what was happening in Washington right now with all the continuing resolutions. The position of the White House is we're not going to partially open government. You know, yes, the World War II memorial was shut down. Yes, it caused a stink. But to the extent that we play favorites, we don't put the pressure on the Republicans to do it. So we're going to keep everything shut down. Dave Uberaga, who's the Grand Canyon superintendent, said, look, you know, this is a core government function. We're not going to take your money, and we're just going to stay here, and when Washington gets funded again, we'll see our guests again.
So basically the feds are saying what the state was saying earlier in the week, and that is this is not 1995. This is a whole different time, a whole different set of circumstances. Again, the governor's quote here, the one that I think raised a lot of eyebrows, and Jim, you kind of paraphrased, but let's get it here. It's, I don't know if the Grand Canyon is a high priority for the state of Arizona. What did she mean that?
She started walking it back towards the end of that interview. I think she realized she had said something that isn't going to play well. But yeah, it's one of those things where there's no real reason we couldn't. It's that the federal government won't, and they have their reasons for it. But there were funding mechanisms in place in the past where we could enter into kind of intergovernmental agreements and make sure the money is there to at least keep it partially open.
And you have a rainy day fund that's kind of sitting there waiting for something to do, don't you?
Well, you do. I mean, you've got $450 million there. You got another few $100 million in just carry forward budget surplus, I guess, for lack of a better word. Mm-hmm. You know, one thing that is interesting is one of the bigger differences between now and the last time this happened is, you know, how we mentioned the State Parks Department finding the money amongst its budget to do this. State Parks Department in the last 5 years has been cut, I mean, dramatically to the point where they closed state parks a number of years ago. They've only now started to get some of that money back. They don't necessarily have a surfeit of extra cash laying around that they could dig into without affecting some of the state parks, which are already struggling to stay open.
Look, this is a microcosm of what's happening in Washington. Everybody's casting blame on everyone else for why Tommy can't go to the park. Same thing happening with the Statue of Liberty, same thing happening with the WIC program and all that. Everybody's casting blame. And believe me, there's plenty to go around.
All right, it's an interesting time with the federal government shutdown and interest and support for Congress at almost an all-time low here in a variety of ways. We had a couple of announcements from folks who say they want to join that crowd back in Washington. Let's start with Andy Tobin. We've discussed it on the program before. It seemed like this is the worst kept secret that he was going to run. He is going to run. Talk to us about the race.
Yeah, made it official earlier this week. Came out in a cowboy hat, crisp rancher shirt, backdrop of his area out there in Paulden, Arizona, somewhere near Prescott. Mm-hmm. And basically said what we all knew was going to happen for quite some time now. He's running for Congress out in CD1. Kind of stretches from the northeast corner of the state down all around. It's a huge district.
Except it doesn't stretch to his house.
Exactly.
Now, of course, his argument is, well, I can see it from the back, sort of like I can see Russia.
That's another one of those quotes where you just don't walk away from that one. That's,
I know.
That one doesn't play all that well. But as far as Tobin, he's not going to stop being Speaker, correct?
Well, this is always an interesting question. Every time we see this, on one hand, you do have the attention of the media at the Capitol, and you keep your name there, and you're more than just as a candidate. On the other hand, given everything that can go wrong with the budget, and we found out today we're going to be back in red ink in a couple of years, given everything else can go wrong with fighting the governor over the Medicaid that we're talking about, over redistricting, you're not sure whether that publicity is always so helpful.
Yeah, well, you know, the last time we saw a sitting leader run for Congress was Tim Bee,
and you do remember Congressman Bee, of course.
Yeah, and he, you know, running for a district not in Maricopa County, running for a district largely in Pima County, and he certainly he was kind of burning it at both ends, and it was kind of a rock and a hard place sort of situation where you got to tend to your business at the legislature. But at the same time, you need to be down in the district, you need to be making appearances, you need to be raising money. It's tough to do both of those things and negotiate a budget. And in this situation, you've got a caucus that's divided. You've got, you know, Republicans that are fighting, you know, ended the session with a very bitter taste in everyone's mouth. So there's a lot of real, you know, different dynamics now. And Tim Bee got criticized a lot by both sides for either not leaving or for running for Congress from the Capitol.
And again, this is not a small Picayune kind of a district here. This is a district larger than some states. I mean,
this stretches from the northern edge of Tucson, Oro Valley, which is where Adam Quasman is from, who's also running in the race, all around northeast Arizona, obviously to just the edge of Paulden, as we mentioned. That's a lot of ground to cover. And if you want to meet people, I mean, as Jim points out, if this were an urban district and you could, get on the local radio station and everything else, that's fine. You've got to go out and you've got to hit every tiny little 500-watt radio station there. You've got to hit every little newspaper, every little Republican club.
So for perspective, I mean, this district is, you said, bigger than some states. It's bigger than Pennsylvania. I mean, that's the size we're talking about here. When you look at the map, it's about 40% of the state's geographic mass. And people who've run in similar districts to this in the past say the way you do it is you essentially run for mayor of 13 towns. I mean, that's basically what you're doing. And in order to do that, you've got to be on the ground. You've got to be there all the time. And the longer session goes on, and there's certainly no guarantee that session is going to be quick. No guarantee it's going to be long either. We just don't know yet. But the longer it goes on, I think the tougher it becomes to be down at the Capitol and deal with that.
And the fund, and you had the point right. The fundraising, you've got to be pressing a lot of flesh. You've got to raise a lot of money for a congressional race.
With that in mind, is there someone he trusts, a second in command that he feels comfortable with, that he could say, all right, I'm gone off. Here I am gone again. You take command. Watch out for this, that, and the other.
Well, it's interesting because his leadership team isn't necessarily made up of Tobin people he trusts, people who are on his side, and you know this. But he does have his Speaker Pro Tem, who is J.D. Mesnard, who has been at his side, really does a lot of the pull around the Capitol, around the House anyway, for him. Who I think he'll be entrusting a lot of things to as he's out there working the district.
Okay. CD2, Martha McSally announces yet again, this will make the third time in this particular race against this particular opponent. Why is she running?
Why not? That was her campaign platform as she rolled it out on the day that the federal government shut down. Didn't really take a lot of questions from reporters, from what I've heard from people down in Tucson, where she was running around the district that day. Wouldn't say how she was going to vote on the continuing resolution, how she would have voted had she been elected last year. On the continuing resolution to keep Congress or keep the federal government running. Just doesn't answer a lot of questions out there.
Well, Howard, I bring up both of these races and the timing of the announcements because, again, they were announced as all of Washington was showing that it was just completely gridlocked. Is it the wisest time, regardless of what side you're on, is it the wisest of times to say, I want to join that club?
Well, but of course, if you want to run as an outsider, and Lord knows we have 535 outsiders there, it's amazing how that happens. Well, see, this wouldn't happen if I were there. If I were there, I would work.
Are they saying that? Because what I'm hearing from Tobin is I'm against the Affordable Care Act, EPA mandates at the Navajo Generating Station, the kinds of things that I don't think separate him all that much from the GOP caucus.
But the arguments always come down to, but I'm bringing in my experience. I am, in Tobin's case, I've run a small business. I understand issues. I understand how to talk to people. You're right. In the Republican primary, you've got to run to the right wing. You've got to run against Obamacare. You've got to run against the EPA rules in the Navajo Generating Station. But as a whole, you want to get elected, you run as an outsider. I am an outsider. And look at Rand Paul. Look at Ted Cruz. They ran as outsiders. I don't think either of these folks are particularly in the exact Tea Party mold, although there's elements of Martha that certainly fit that description.
That general election against Barbara was pretty doggone close. She got a shot this time, you think?
Yeah, it was within a percentage point. I mean, it was a couple thousand votes. It could go either way, depending on kind of the national mood. I think a lot of this will boil down to which side the public chooses to blame over the federal shutdown. All
right. We've got lawmakers. They're standing in this Medicaid suit. It sounds as though the governor... I'm hearing the governor isn't even speaking to some of them. What's going on? Again, we're talking about Medicaid expansion, the lawmakers that are suing the governor over this, and the governor's office is saying, what, you don't have any business even being here?
Yeah, some lawmakers have told us that they can't get a response out of the governor's office from policy advisors or staff, and a couple of them actually went to Access, the agency that they're suing, to get information on implementation of the expansion and some other information, and the response I got back was, well, have your attorney call our attorney since you're kind of suing us, so we really shouldn't talk to you. We don't want to violate that lawsuit.
Which is such a pile of fertilizer, given that the legislature and the governor have sued each other, prior legislature, prior to the governor sue each other over adjudication of rights all the time. It happens all the time. This is the ninth floor. This is the Brewer administration in a snit. That's purely what this is.
And we're talking 36 lawmakers here, who basically the governor's office saying you don't have standing because what? You are not personally being injured by this particular action?
Yeah, essentially.
Expanding Medicaid?
The argument goes that the only people who can sue us are those impacted by this, and that would be the hospitals. And the way they're impacted happens to be they're going to make money off of this, so that's probably not going to happen.
Well, here's another fascinating argument about the thing. Obviously, part of the question is this a tax, and therefore did it require a two-thirds vote?
That's the question, isn't it?
That is the question. There's another question about delegation of powers. Here's the fascinating argument. You're going to love this. It's the legislature's decision to decide whether it requires a clause to say it requires a two-thirds vote, and the decision of whether it requires a two-thirds vote can be made by a majority of the legislature. Now, if that doesn't make your head spin...
we're way off the dock here. We're way out in deep waters
exactly,
here.
But the argument is a simple majority of the legislature can decide if a two-thirds majority is required. No.
And basically the governor's office just called them a bunch of disgruntled legislators.
Yeah, I mean, more or less. They're basically saying, look, if the courts grant this, from these legislators, then you open up a Pandora's box, really, for legislators who lost on an issue can file a suit over anything. Is the argument? I mean, certainly the sky really probably isn't falling quite that way, but it's an argument in court, and then that's what the attorneys are paid to do.
All right, we'll see how that one works out, whether it's an assessment or a tax.
It's a levy.
It's a levy. All right.
From the Chevy to the levy.
Yes. All right. Don't do that, Howie. Let's talk instead about Joe Arpaio. Maricopa County, this thing has been going on for 6 years. We talked about it earlier this week. The court-appointed monitor that the department did not want, you're going to have it now, along with some other things.
Well, this is what's been interesting. I want to say it was clear that Joe was going to lose the lawsuit, but given the testimony presented, including a person who was an aide to the Phoenix mayor who was singled out, it was very clear that the department was going to be found guilty of some sort of racial profiling. The plaintiffs weren't asking for money, they were asking for relief, to stop it from doing it. Well, how do you get that? Well, you need somebody to be watching ongoing. It's not, well, we didn't do it and we won't do it again. Some of it is training. Some of it requires, if you're going to do certain things with more than 10 deputies, you have to let us know a certain number of days afterwards. Now, some of it's going to require some real money. A camera, for example, in every vehicle, so that when you pull over somebody, we've got a record of that. And if you happen to be stopping a lot of people for the crime of driving while brown, we'll know about that.
And not audio and video documentation there on these stops. Also, they have to tell the ACLU and this community advisory board within 24 hours of a planned immigration activity, enforcement activity. They've worked for months on this agreement. It took 6 years to get here. The sheriff's office is acting like they won. The ACLU is acting like they won. Does that mean we're going to see an appeal here?
I think the appeal is going to come when somebody is accused of violating it. I think for the time being, does it make sense for the sheriff to appeal? Well, he loves going to court. He may appeal anyway, saying that Judge Snow didn't have the power to do what he did in terms of the monitor and everything else. But the judge was very careful to say the monitor will not control. The monitor will, by definition, monitor. So I don't think the judge exceeded his authority here. I think the next time this goes to court is going to be an implementation. Well, you didn't let us know something happened. You didn't put in the cameras in time.
Indeed.
You conducted an investigation. We think it was a sweep. No, this was something different.
But I think Joe Arpaio is sharp enough to realize that comes up. You're talking contempt here. You're talking serious business as far as some sort. Well,
yeah. I mean, yeah. Look,
what am I saying?
Well, look.
Right.
He would say, this judge can't jail the sheriff.
Well, okay, he can say that, but he'll also understand that contempt's a whole different ball. Okay, let's move on here and explain what's going on with the clemency board, please.
So a couple of inmates who are scheduled to be executed soon sued and said that they don't feel that they can get a fair shake from the clemency board because the governor's office has been leaning on board members to make sure that they don't approve clemency, that they don't delay executions, they uphold the sentences that were given, and so they went to court, filed that to try to delay these executions, and on the witness stand, the members of the clemency board said, no, that's never happened. We haven't had that. And so the judge, basically said, okay, well, I believe that they'll be fair. They said that they'd be fair. They said they haven't gotten any undue pressure from the governor's office, and I don't see any reason to stop these executions.
Now, what's really significant is you have to understand this isn't the old Board of Pardons and Paroles. Under the way the law is for the Board of Executive Clemency, the governor cannot even consider clemency or commutation unless she gets a positive recommendation. The charges that Scott Smith, who's now her chief of staff, was deputy chief of staff, had talked to some former board members after they had approved 2 requests. One, a guy named McCumber, who there's some question about whether his guilt is all, and a guy named Flabat, who was convicted of 10 counts of child porn and sentenced to a mandatory 90 years. Now the guy's in his 60s, and they say, maybe, the time served might make sense. It forced, by recommending clemency, it forced the governor to make a decision. And the argument of these attorneys is the governor doesn't like that. That's why she sent Scott Smith to tell some of these people she was unhappy. Now, the question of what Scott Smith said is essentially, I don't want to say uncontested. Smith was never called to testify, but that's the former board. She got rid of the former board. Now she has a new board. All of them said, as Jim points out, we're not being pressured.
Well, what happened to the former board's testimony? We had a whole bunch of folks there saying that fingers were pointed in their face and voices were raised, and it was pretty confrontational.
Yeah, well, but as Howie said, they're the former board. They're not the current board. They're not the. The suit was over whether the current board can give these prisoners a fair assessment and a fair hearing, and former board members don't really factor into that. And the judge, essentially said, I have no reason to doubt what the current board members are saying when they say that we haven't been pressured and we will give these people a fair consideration. Still
a stain on the clemency board overall, in general?
Of course, it's going to be a long-standing stain.
Yeah, all right. Real quickly here, vouchers for kids with disabilities. I use the word voucher because I just know it just makes the Goldwater Institute crazy. They say it's not vouchers, but we'll call them those things. Yeah. For kids with disabilities, this has been fought in court so many times, upheld.
Well, this one's interesting because the Supreme Court had rejected an earlier voucher plan, even though the folks had argued from the Goldwater Institute, the Institute for Justice, well, the money's going to the parents, and the parents control it, and the Supreme Court, Michael Ryan said, no, we all know where the money's going. So they came back with this plan. It's called an Empowerment Scholarship Account. And essentially, we give the parents an account equal to 90% of what the kid would get in state aid, and they can use it for private school tuition, parochial school tuition. They can homeschool the kid, give them tutoring. They can even save up the money for the kid to go to college after high school, which is one of those interesting secrets that some of us just found out about. The judges in the Court of Appeals said, well, because it's the parents who control this.
Which has always been the argument for supporters.
That because the parents control it and the state doesn't control it, it doesn't violate 2 constitutional provisions. One specifically prohibits state aid to private and parochial schools, and they said it's not aid. And number 2 is a specific prohibition against using state funds for religious instruction or education.
So, does this end this particular issue?
Well, no. I'm sure that, I think it was the appellate court that upheld this, and I'm sure that there'll be an appeal to try to get the Supreme Court to take this up or to get an en banc review at the 9th. But actually, I think really what this is a springboard into more of this, because they've already expanded this program. It was initially aimed at just a very small group of, I think it was like handicapped kids, and then foster kids, and then they added kids who are in failing schools. And the goal is to incrementally expand this until it is a full-fledged voucher system for the entire state, for any student in Arizona.
And that's the crucial part. By adding the kids in DNF schools, we add about 70,000 kids. There are 1.1 million kids in public schools. And if you say to the parents, look, we'll give you, let's assume your kid gets $5,000 normally, we'll give you 90% of that, and you can use it as you want, and maybe bank it. The question becomes, what are you doing to the public school system? And the other part of it is, once parents get out of the school system, who lobbies for public schools? Who lobbies for public education, which the Constitution requires the state to have?
Well, all right, so we've seen the trial judge ruling, we've seen the appeals court upholding it. We'll see how much else we got going here. I know one thing, we got about 30 seconds left, and I did not want to get out of here without talking about John Green.
John Green was an interesting character. He was Senate president. He was a excuse the oxymoron, a moderate Republican, sort of pro-choice, didn't really have a lot of problem with gay rights, things like that. Had a few strange edges. He desperately wanted tort reform to the point he was willing to torture a ballot measure to do it. But he recognized that everyone needs to get along. Now, this is the pre-days of term limits, and I think his belief was, we make everybody get along, we'll all get along better, and the purpose of the legislature is compromise.
Real quickly, yes or no, would he be a player in this current legislature?
He wouldn't even be elected to this current legislature.
All right, we'll stop it right there. Gentlemen, thank you so much. That is it for now. I'm Ted Simons. Thank you so much for joining us. You have a great weekend.
Arizona Horizon is made possible by contributions from the Friends of Eight, members of your Arizona PBS station. Thank you.